Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Well, can you believe we're already in July? And of course, I had to kick off the month with a little Christmas in July fun. If you're new to the idea, Christmas in July is a midsummer celebration where we embrace all the festive cheer of the holidays right in the middle of summer. It's a fun way to take a break from the heat, and for us card makers, it's perfect excuse to pull out all our holiday supplies and start building our holiday stash nice and early. Plus, it's a refreshing change from all the summery themes we've been working on lately. The project I'm sharing today is a super beginner friendly project if you're just getting started with card making. It's also a great design if you're looking for something easy to mass produce for the holiday season. Before we dive into the card project, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me. For today's card, I'll be using the Nutcracker die cut ephemera by Cat's Crappiness. This set includes 28 beautifully colored and pre-cut paper designs. Now, if you're new to die cut ephemeras, they're essentially ready to use images printed on high quality cardstock, perfect as focal points for your card fronts, scrapbook layouts, or even mini albums. I highly recommend these for beginner crafters who are still getting comfortable with stamping, coloring, or die cutting. But honestly, they are great for all skill levels too. I often use them myself when I'm mass producing card designs. This Nutcracker theme coordinates beautifully with the rest of the Cat Scrappiness Nutcracker product line. Perfect for making holiday cards quick, easy, and fun. You'll notice that this set includes a variety of beautiful designs from charming nutcrackers in two different sizes to an elegant little ballerina, which I think would work wonderfully not just for holiday cards but even for birthday cards. Now, there are 28 colored pieces in total with multiple copies of each design, usually 4 to 5 of each. So, if you were to mass produce these cards, you can easily create 4 to 5 identical cards with the same layout. When working with die cut ephemera, I like to lay all the pieces out on my work surface and select the ones that best suit my card design. As I mentioned earlier, these ephemera pieces coordinate beautifully with the Nutcracker product line by Cat Scrappiness. I also have the Nutcracker stamp set, which features the same charming designs but in a smaller size. The Nutcracker stamp also comes with a coordinating die set, allowing you to cut out the stamped and colored images with ease. It also comes with a few extra images that pair perfectly with the die cut pieces. While the ephemera designs are slightly larger than the stamped ones, they will still fit perfectly on your A2 size card fronts. If you enjoy playing with color and customizing your projects, I highly recommend adding the Nutcracker stamp and die set combo to your collection. These adorable images are perfect for building festive and charming holiday cards. For today's card, I have decided to keep the design clean and simple, focusing entirely on the Nutcracker die cut ephemera without incorporating any of those stamps or dies or any additional techniques. Now, I really wanted the adorable characters to take the center stage, so I'll be building the card entirely around those pre-cut pieces. To create the background, I'll be using the pattern papers from the Nutcracker paper pad. This paper pad features a beautiful range of soft festive designs, and for this particular card, I've chosen a delicate pink pattern. It adds a gentle wash of color to the background, just enough to bring warmth and visual interest without drawing attention away from our main elements. The soft pink sets the perfect scene for a sweet little girl holding her nutcracker toy, accompanied by a tiny little mouse, both of which will be the focal points of our card. The color choice helps highlight the charming ephemera without making the card feel too busy or overwhelming. I wanted to create a very clean and simple look. Keeping the layout simple really allows those details to shine, making this design both beginner friendly and visually appealing. To give both of my focal point elements a bit of grounding, I decided to bring in a piece from the Lumberyard paper pad. Now, this is one of my go to paper pads when I want to add a warm wood grain texture to my cards. The patterns closely resemble hardwood flooring, which adds a cozy, homey touch to the scene, paired with a soft pink background, which could easily be imagined as a wallpaper. We are essentially creating a charming home style setting. It sets the stage beautifully for our little girl holding her nutcracker toy and her tiny mouse friend as they send their heartfelt Christmas wishes. I love how these simple touches bring the whole scene to life in such a warm and inviting way. I added a narrow strip of that wood grain cardstock, which measures roughly around 1.5 inches wide, along the bottom of the panel. I kept it small on purpose as I really wanted the focus to remain on the die cut ephemera pieces and the soft pink background. After adhering it in place, I trimmed off any excess to clean up the edges. With the background complete, it was time to move on to the focal points, but well before adding those, I decided to stamp my sentiment. I chose the sentiment which says, "May your days be merry and bright," from the Christmas Lantern add on stamp set by Cat Scrappiness. I absolutely love this set. The font is elegant and festive, and the little Christmas florals included would make a lovely addition to any holiday card. I stamped the sentiment on a black strip of cardstock using white pigment ink, then added white embossing powder and heat set it to get that crisp, bold look. The stamp set also includes coordinating dies that allow you to cut out the sentiment perfectly. Now, whenever I use white embossing powder, I like to use a white pigment ink instead of a clear watermark ink like your Versamark ink. So here, I feel that gives the white a lot more pop as compared to your clear watermark ink. I then used the coordinating die to cut my sentiments. Now, whenever I work with sentiment strips or die cut sentiments, I prefer stacking multiple layers of cardstock behind them instead of using foam tape. I find that layering gives a more cleaner and polished look while still adding dimension to your cards. To give my sentiment a bit of dimension, I die cut the sentiment pieces thrice and carefully stack the layers together using my Barely Art liquid glue. This technique adds a subtle elevation and a clean professional finish without the bulk of the foam tape. If you don't have the coordinating dies, you can easily turn these sentiments into a strip or a label, which would look just as lovely. Alternatively, you could also stamp the sentiments directly onto the background panel for a more flat and minimal look. All of these options would work beautifully depending on the style that you're going for. With the sentiment ready, it was now time to assemble the rest of the card. I decided to keep things simple and adhered all the elements directly onto the background using liquid glue. While you can absolutely use foam tape to pop up your focal point images for additional dimension, I chose to keep everything flat, allowing the ephemera and the background to really shine without any distraction. I positioned the little girl slightly to the left of the sentiment, making her the main focal point, and placed the tiny little mouse just below the sentiment strip to create a balanced, heartwarming scene. The only added dimension on this card front comes from that layered sentiments, which helps it to stand out just enough without overwhelming the design. The final result is a very clean, simple, and full of festive charm design. I still have more of these exact same die cut ephemera pieces on hand, which means I can easily create three more cards using the same exact layout. To keep things interesting, I can make a few subtle changes like switching up the background by using different pattern papers from the same Nutcracker paper pad. That simple variation would give each card a fresh look while keeping the overall design constant. Well, for this particular card, I decided to skip adding any embellishments or bling to the front. I know that's not usually like me, but I might come back later and add a touch of sparkle, but for now, I'm keeping it clean and simple. Once the card panel was complete, I adhered it to a top folding white A2 size card base, and just like that, this card is done. I truly love how this card came together. It was quick, easy, and so much fun to make. The design is perfect for mass production, especially with all the adorable die cut ephemeras included in the pack. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video and it gave you a bit of inspiration to dive into your holiday crafting. All the supplies that I used today will be listed down in the description box below. Please know that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello crafty friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we are creating another card for our Christmas in July series. Now, what I love about this design is that it is so versatile and can work beautifully with so many other occasions too. Scenic backgrounds like this offer much more creative freedom. You can play with colors to create a sunrise or a sunset scene or even a dreamy winter sky and then pair it with a sentiment to make a stunning card front. Before we jump into the project, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel for more fun and inspiring card making videos. Let's start by taking a look at the product I'll be using to create this beautiful background. Now, this is the Mountainscape stencil from the latest Trend Like You release by Simon Says. I'll admit, when I first saw all these different pieces in the stencil, I was a bit overwhelmed. But once I started using it, I realized how brilliantly it is designed to help you build a beautiful, layered, scenic background with ease. From those striking, jagged mountains to the sun or, well, the moon, and the soft, drifting clouds there, it all comes together so beautifully. What makes this stencil even more impressive is that it includes not just the layering elements, but also coordinating masks for each cutout. That means you can easily tape off the shapes and ink each section with precision, building up depth and dimension one layer at a time. This stencil would pair perfectly with silhouette stamps, landscape scenes, or even adventure theme cards. That's why I say it's incredibly versatile. You can bring in so many creative ideas to life using just this one single product. I'll be using my Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks to do all of the ink blending on this panel today. Normally, I'd use my sticky mat to keep the panel and stencil in place, but today I'm switching things up and using my glass mat from Glassport Studio. What I love about this mat is that it's magnetic, and as you'll see, the small magnets do a great job holding both the stencil and the panel securely while I ink blend. I find this especially helpful when working with tiny masks that can be tricky to keep in place with a sticky mat. Of course, you could also use a temporary adhesive or pixie spray if that's what you have on hand. For this card, I wanted to create a wintry night scene. So I went with the deep black tones for the mountains and a vibrant blue for my sky, keeping the moon bright white for some contrast. I started by ink blending the mountains using some gorgeous shades from the positively saturated ink line from Simon Says. For this project, I used my trio of black inks, which is flannel, earl, and charcoal. Although the stencil includes mask, I like to add post-it notes for extra protection just to ensure no ink bleeds into the other areas of the design. I find the mask especially helpful when I'm doing ink splattering or blending over areas that already have color on them. Well, you'll see that later in the video. For now, I'm using tiny pieces of tape to mask the edges and keep everything clean. The stencil has three mountain layers, and I'm ink blending them with different shades of black to add depth and dimension, helping the scene look more realistic and visually appealing. I used the same color trio across the mountain layers, starting with the darker shade at the base and blending lighter towards the top. This creates the effect of moonlight gently hitting the mountain peaks. You'll also notice how I placed the magnets to securely hold the post-it notes in place. This helps ensure a seamless blend across the panel without the colors smudging into each other. Although charcoal is the darkest shade in the positively saturated ink line, I wanted something even more darker and deeper black for the base of the mountains. So I bought in my black pigment ink from Alteneu. It's a beautifully rich, crisp black. Now, if you don't have that on hand, you can absolutely use something like VersaFine Onyx Black ink or any deep black ink that you would typically use for stamping your sentiments or images. Just be sure to ink blend with a light hand, especially in those small, detailed areas to avoid any harsh splotches or uneven patches of color. Now this panel here measures 4 by 5 and quarter inches, which is slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base. Once I finished ink blending the mountains, I moved to the bottom of the panel, blending in the blacks to create a smooth gradient from the deep to the light tones, giving the base a nice sense of depth and flow. I'm already loving how this landscape is coming together. The rich black gradient really reminds me of my trip to the mountains, especially those scenic drives on a wintry night. Now, you might notice that I accidentally got a bit of ink on the white part of the panel, but I'm not too concerned since we'll be blending over that area to create our night sky. However, if this were a daytime scene with bright white sky and some clouds, I would definitely be more cautious to avoid any ink smudging in the white areas. Next, I'll bring the masks in to cover the top portion of the mountain along with the circular mask to create the moon. I'll secure both these masks in place with my small magnets. This is where I prefer using the stencils included masks instead of the post-it notes since the lower mountain layers already have ink on them and I'm not as worried about the ink slipping through. That being said, I'll have to be extra careful when blending around the moon as that area needs to stay crisp and bright white, so no smudges allowed there. To create a vibrant and dreamy night sky, I chose to blend three beautiful shades of blue. I have morning, twilight, and galaxy from the positively saturated ink line. My goal was to achieve a soft glow around the moon, so I started by applying the lighter shade morning closest to the moon and gave the effect of a gentle halo. From there, I transitioned into twilight, adding a bit more depth as I moved outward, and finally blended in galaxy towards the outer edges to intensify the richness of the night sky. To push the nighttime effect even further, I added a hint of black around the corners and the edges of the sky. This helps darken those areas and make the lighter tones near the moon stand out even more, giving the whole panel a sense of a beautiful depth. The gradual shift from soft glow to the deep night really brings the scene to life and captures that peaceful wintry night feel that I was aiming for. What's a night sky without some twinkling stars? I pulled out my silver metallic watercolor to add splatters across the entire sky. I used the mask to cover all the other stencil areas, leaving only the sky exposed for a starry effect. Now, when it comes to adding splatters, there's really no right or wrong way to do it. It It's all about what feels right to you. You may add as little or as more as you want. You might also notice that this time I'm not using my splatter box. Since I was working on my glass mat, cleanup is a breeze. I carefully splattered in a way that kept the mess contained, and when I was done, I just sprayed the glass with water and wiped it off with a microfiber cloth. After finishing the silver metallic splatters, I carefully removed each mask. Next, I added white splatters to create a snowy effect across the entire panel. One of the good things about working on a glass mat is that you can apply ink directly onto the surface for splattering instead of using an acrylic block, which is what I usually do. I splattered the white ink all over the panel to achieve that beautiful snowy background look. Once I was done, I sprayed the glass mat with water and wiped it clean using my microfiber cloth. I will leave a link to this glass mat in the description box below, along with a discount code that you can use at checkout. Now that our background panel is complete, it's time to move on to the sentiment. I originally planned this as a Christmas themed card, but this beautiful scenic background would also be perfect for friends who love camping, hiking, or any mountain adventure. Now, for my sentiment, I chose the season's greetings phrase from the Peaceful Trees stamp set. To ensure perfect placement, I positioned my panel into my Altenew stamp wheel and aligned the sentiment carefully using my grid transparency sheet. While you could add a sentiment strip, I opted to keep things simple and stamped the sentiment directly onto the panel. I was very careful when stamping, wanting to preserve that integrity of that gorgeous background we created. I didn't want to ruin this up. Now, I stamped my sentiment twice using Versify and Onyx Black ink to get a clean, bold impression that complements the design without overpowering it. I really love how simple stamped sentiment balances the detail of our background. Next, using the tree images from the same stamp set, I stamped the line of silhouette trees along the bottom edge of the panel. I layered charcoal and the black pigment ink by Altenew to build depth and dimension in the tree line, adding visual interest and grounding the scene beautifully. I also used my VersaFine Onyx Black ink on one of those trees to add a little extra depth and richness to the blend. I absolutely love how this panel turned out. Now all that is left is to adhere the panel onto a white card base. I used foam tape to mount it onto a top folding A2 size card base, giving it a bit of dimension and polished look. And with that, it's a wrap on our wintry night scene card. I absolutely love how this project turned out, from the layered mountains to the vibrant sky and those shimmery star splatters. It really captures the peaceful beauty of a snowy evening. What I especially enjoyed about these layered stencils and the ink blending is how much depth and dimension you can build with just simple tools and some creative layering. This design is so versatile too. While I created a Christmas themed card, the scenic background works beautifully for any occasion. Whether it's a birthday for a nature lover, or card for a hiking or camping friend, or simply a thoughtful hello to someone who appreciates the outdoors. If you're new to ink blending or using layered stencils, don't be intimidated. Take your time with the masks and blending, and remember that every card you make is a unique expression of your creativity. Don't hesitate to experiment with different color combinations and techniques to make your designs stand out. Now, all of the supplies that I used to create this card today will be listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are making a very clean and simple card that features a beautiful floral die cut as the main focal point for our card. If you're a fan of minimalistic card designs, this one's definitely for you. I've kept things super simple with no bling, no sparkle, just a few colored cardstocks and a classic sentiment strip. Before we dive into the supplies I used for today's card, I'd really appreciate if you could take a quick moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I post a new video. In today's video, I'll be showcasing three products. We have a floral die for the focal point, an embossing folder for the background, and a stamp set for my sentiment. Now, even though I had planned to use the embossing folder, I ended up leaving it out. You'll see why later in the video. All of these products are part of the latest Trend Like You release by Simon's Stamp. This embossing folder is called Dainty Dotted Daisy, and it features a repeating pattern of beautiful daisies and delicate leaves, perfect for a fresh and modern background. I absolutely love this embossing folder and have used it in so many different projects. For my sentiment, I'll be using the Just For You sentiment from the Wildflower Cutting stamp set. It's one of my favorite stamp sets, and I've used it across so many projects. And I even have a video where I shared four different cards that I created using just the stamp set. For the main focal point of my card, I'm using the Tilted Daisies wafer die. The set includes two daisy designs and comes with dies that cut out four layered daisy petals, two flower centers, and two stems. Now, these dies are perfect for your spring and summer theme cards, birthday greetings, sympathy cards, cheerful gift tags, or any other nature inspired projects. For today's card, I kept things clean and simple by creating a classic white daisy with a yellow center and a green stem. Now you can absolutely add color to your daisies. Typically, I like to cut out all of the pieces from white cardstock and then add color with either ink blending or alcohol markers. But for this card, I did something different. I kept the petals plain white and cut them using plain white cardstock. For the flower center and stems, I used beautiful shimmery yellow and green cardstock from Your Paper Insider. The soft shine from these specialty papers is actually the only sparkle that you'll find on the entire card front. To start the die cutting process, I secured all the die pieces onto my cardstocks using some low tack washi tape. This helps keep everything in place while running it through the machine, preventing any shifting that could affect the cut. Now, I use my Spellbinder's Platinum 6 die cutting machine for this step. It's my go to machine for almost 2 years now, and I generally can't recommend it enough. It delivers such clean, precise cuts every single time, and even with these little intricate or detailed dies like this floral set here. Now, once all of the pieces were cut, I laid everything out and began assembling the layered daisy. The die comes with four layering pieces for the flower, two small and two large. These layers allow you to build depth and texture into your design. I started by adding a small amount of glue to the center of one of those base flower layers and then carefully aligned and adhered the matching layer on the top. This simple step adds such beautiful dimension and makes the flower look more realistic and full. With the petals assembled, I moved on to the flower center and the stem. The flower center, I use the soft yellow shimmery cardstock, and for the stem, I have that subtle metallic green, both of which, like I mentioned, come from Your Paper Insider and add just the right amount of shine to our focal point. Now, these specialty papers are absolutely stunning, and the shimmer they bring is actually only the bit of the sparkle that I needed in the card. Usually, I would add bling or splatters, but in this case, I kept it really simple. Now, once everything is assembled, I had a beautiful layered daisy that served as a perfect focal point for my card. Off camera, I went ahead and cut another daisy because I wanted to create an odd number of flower focal point on my card front that I feel gives a beautiful visual appearance to the card. With my floral focal point ready, I moved on to creating the background. My initial plan was to add some subtle texture, for which I used the dainty dotted daisy embossing folder and ran an A2 size white cardstock panel through my die cutting machine. Now, to enhance the embossed details, I lightly blended some, well, not blended, I ran the melon ink pad from the positively saturated ink line over the surface of this embossed panel. The soft color really helped those delicate floral impressions stand out, and I have to say, I absolutely love the texture and elegant detail this embossing folder adds. However, once I placed my daisy focal point on top of that embossed background, I felt that the background looked a little too busy and competed with the simplicity of my flower. As beautiful as this embossed panel was, I decided to it aside for another project. Instead, I chose a soft, light cream cardstock for my background. It offered a perfect neutral base, clean, subtle, and it really allowed the daisy to shine as the star of our card. I trimmed the background panel down to 4 by 5 and quarter inches, making it slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base. This allows for a nice even border around the edges when it's mounted later. Now, using liquid glue, I carefully adhered all of the floral die cut pieces onto the panel, arranging them in a way that creates a soft organic bouquet effect, almost well like a little wildflower gathering. The layered pieces come together beautifully, adding both texture and charm to our cut front. As I mentioned earlier, even though this card design is very clean and simple, it's a very versatile design. It would work beautifully as a birthday card, a thinking of you note, or even a thank you card. For my sentiment, I chose one from the Wildflower Cutting stamp set, which is full of lovely, heartfelt phrases. Honestly, any of the sentiments in this set would have worked perfectly with this card front. But I decided to keep things simple and elegant by choosing the small sentiment that reads just for you. This stamp set also has coordinating die set, which not only cuts out those beautiful floral images but also the sentiments, making it super convenient for projects like this. I'll include a link to the coordinating dies in the description below in case you'd like to check them out. Now, to stamp my sentiment, I used a scrap piece of black cardstock and placed it onto my Altenew stamp wheel. I stamped the sentiment using my Simon's stamp white pigment ink, which I find gives a much crisper impression when I plan to heat emboss with white embossing powder, especially compared to using Versamark ink. Now, before stamping, don't forget to prep your cardstock with an anti-static powder tool to prevent any stray embossing powder from sticking where it shouldn't. If any stray powder does show up, I like to gently brush it away with a clean, dry paintbrush before setting. Now, usually I like to stamp my sentiment twice just to make sure that I have ink everywhere on the image so that my embossing powder sticks to the entire image. Now, once that's done, I use my heat tool to melt the powder and bring the sentiment to life. To trim the sentiment into a clean label, you could use your paper trimmer or any sentiment label die that you have in your stash. I used the Altenew featured sentiment die to cut mine. It's the perfect size and finishes off the sentiment beautifully. Before attaching the sentiment to the card front, I decided to add a small detail for a bit of extra visual interest. I tucked in a tiny piece of the green stem, just a scrap left over from my first die cut flower. It's a subtle touch, but it really helps tie the whole design together and adds a nice layered look. Then, using thin foam strip, I adhered the sentiment right at the intersection where those stems meet. To make sure that the sentiment was perfectly straight and well positioned and aligned to the scarf front, I used my Simon's Stamp T square ruler. It is one of my go to tools for getting everything lined up just right. Normally, I like to add a few tiny dots of liquid glue to the back of the foam tape before placing the sentiment. This gives me a little extra wiggle room to adjust the placement if needed, but since I was using my T-square ruler for alignment, this time I skipped the liquid glue and confidently adhered the sentiment label directly in place. With the sentiment in position, the final step was to mount the panel onto an A2 size top folding card base. Here I'm using the Nina Solar White card base, which is one of my favorites for its quality and clean finish and the weight. Now, well, just like that, our card is complete. I love how clean, fresh, and simple this design turned out. Of course, there's always room to personalize it further. You could add ink splatters to the background before adhering the flowers, or even after everything is assembled. You could also use some blings or embellishment sequences on this card front too. I hope you enjoyed today's clean and simple card projects. It's amazing how few thoughtfully chosen elements like some beautiful layered florals, a soft background, and a crisp sentiment can come together to create something really elegant and timeless. This card design is so versatile, and with just a few little tweaks, you could easily adapt it for so many different occasions too. Whether you keep it minimal like I did or add your own flair with splatters or embellishments, I hope this inspires you to create something really beautiful. Now, all the supplies that I used to create this project will be listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you'd like this project, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe for more crafty inspiration. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm sharing a super simple card project that focuses on basic stamping and easy coloring. It's a perfect beginner friendly project, so if you're just starting out your card making journey, this one's for you. I'll be sharing a few helpful tips along the way as I revisit some of the basics that got me started. Well, before we dive in, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I post a new video. Let's start by taking a closer look at the stamp set that I'll be using as the main focal point for today's card. Now, it's the Ahoy Matey stamp set from the latest Friend Like You release by Simon's Stamp. This charming pirate-themed set features three adventurous kids in classic pirate poses, one holding a sword, another looking through his telescope, and the little girl confidently standing on the prow of a pirate ship. You'll also find some fun supporting images like parrots, sea creatures, a treasure chest, a message bottle, and some scattered coins. The included sentiments would work beautifully for celebration themed cards, whether it's birthday, a fun farewell, or a see you soon message. I began by placing my A2 sized cardstock panel onto my Ultinew stamp wheel. The ultra sticky mat holds the panel firmly in place, perfect for when you need to stamp an image multiple times to get that clean, crisp impression. Now, since I'll be coloring this image with alcohol markers, I am using an alcohol friendly ink. Here I have chosen my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, which is a dye ink that works great with alcohol based markers. Well, my ink pad definitely needs a bit of re-inking, but I usually like to stamp my images twice anyway to ensure a nice solid impression. If you'd like to add a bit of shine to your stamped image, another option is to stamp it with a pigment ink like the Versafine Onyx Black ink, and then you can apply some black embossing powder and heat set it. This will not only give your image a glossy finish, but also creates raised lines that act like little wells, helping you keep your coloring inside the lines, especially helpful if you're just getting started with alcohol markers. Normally, I trim my card panel down to 4 by 5 and quarter inches, which is a nice even border when adhered to a standard A2 size card base. But for today's card, I wanted to create a more prominent frame around the panel. So instead of trimming by hand, I reached out for one of the smaller A2 nesting dies by Spellbinders. This helped me achieve a precise cut with a narrower panel that allows more of the card base to show around the edges, wherein creating a bold, clean border effect. To give you a better sense of size, I placed this card panel onto an A2 size card base just for reference. You can really see how that extra border space adds to the overall look. Now, once I was happy with the panel size, I brought it back to my Altenew stamp wheel so I could stamp the sentiment. Now, since my Memento black ink pad was running a little dry, I switched to Altenew's Jet Black ink. This is also a dye ink and works beautifully for crisp, clean sentiments or any stamped image. Now, before stamping, I positioned the sentiment using my clear transparency sheet that comes with uh, these grid lines that helps to make sure that the sentiment is properly aligned to this panel. I stamped the sentiment twice to get a sharp, even image. And then, to add a bit more character to the scene, I decided to include the little sparrow from the stamp set, stamping him perched right on the ship, which adds a fun and playful detail to our card. With all the stamping complete, it's time to bring this fun little scene to life with some color. Now for today's card, I'm using my Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers. These markers come with a fine bullet tip, which is perfect for coloring in the smaller details like the tiny characters and the accessories on the stamped image. Their precision makes them a great choice for intricate stamped images like this one. I also have my Ohu alcohol markers on hand, which feature a brush tip. You'll see me reach out for that a bit later in the video, especially when coloring the larger parts of the ship and also surrounding water. The brush tip gives a smooth, painterly blend that works beautifully for bigger and more open spaces. Now, since this card is intended to be a beginner-friendly project, I kept the coloring process very simple, focusing on basic fills rather than detailed shadings and textures. For the pirate's outfit, I chose a cheerful orange, while the ship got a few shades of classic brown to highlight its wooden structure. One of the best advantages of the tri-blend markers is that each pen includes three coordinated shades of light, medium, and dark of the same color. This makes it super easy to add depth and dimension without having to search for matching tones in your marker stash. It's especially helpful if you're new to coloring and want to keep things simple while still achieving a shaded look. For the water, I used a single shade of light blue, but I used it in brushstroke manner just to give an illusion of waves and motion. You might notice that the stamped image of the water doesn't quite reach the edges of the panel. To fix that and create a more seamless look, I used a black gel pen to extend the stamped water lines all the way to both the edges of the card panel. It's a quick and easy trick that really helps tie the whole scene together. To brighten up the background and complement the colors in the focal point image, I decided to add a bold pop of color behind the panel. I chose a vibrant orange cardstock that perfectly matches the pirate's outfit, tying the whole design together. I used the next size up from my A2 size nesting die set to cut out that orange panel, creating a neat layered look with a defined border around the main seam. I absolutely love how the bright orange contrasts with the cool tones of the blue water. It really makes the scene stand out. While you could absolutely mount the panel directly onto an orange card base, I personally prefer to use white card base for a clean and classic finish. So in this case, the orange panel serves as a colorful accent layer that grounds the entire design without overpowering it. To assemble everything together, I used liquid glue to adhere the main stamped panel onto the orange cardstock. Then, using double sided foam tape, I popped the entire piece onto a top folding A2 size note card. This extra dimension adds just the right amount of interest and helps the card feel more finished. With the card base complete, it was time to add those final finishing touches that bring everything to life. I used my Spectrum Noir glitter brush pen to add a soft shimmer across various parts of the stamped image, like the pirate's hat, water, and some parts of the ship's details. After that, I bought in my white gel pen to add subtle highlights for extra definition and a playful touch. A quick tip here: always apply your white gel pen details after using your glitter brush pen. This helps prevent any smudging and ensures those crisp white highlights really pop. To finish things off, I added few dabs of icicle stickles in key areas for a touch of sparkle and shine. It's all those small simple accents that makes the whole card feel extra special. And that brings us to the finished card. I absolutely love how this project turned out. It's bright, cheerful, and full of character. Creating this card really took me back to my early days of card making when I first fell in love with stamping and coloring. Back then, I was all about bringing images to life with color, even though I didn't yet know much about adding shading, texture, or even shadows to these images. This project was a wonderful reminder that you don't need advanced techniques to enjoy a beautiful creative process and create something so absolutely stunning. Sometimes going back to the basic can be just as rewarding. I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video as much as I did creating this card project. All the supplies that I used here will be listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using any of those links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited to share another Christmas in July themed card project with you guys today. This one features a fun layering stencil from the brand new collection by Stacy Park in collaboration with Sizzix. There's a lot of color, texture, layers, and shimmer in this design. I have mixed in some of my favorite go-to products along with a few brand new goodies from this release. Before we jump in, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell icon so that you never miss a crafty update. For our card today, we are going to be working with a Wreath and Time layering stencil, which is part of this beautiful new collection by Stacy Park in collaboration with Sizzix. Now, this particular stencil sets includes four individual stencils, all thoughtfully designed to layer one over the other to build a stunning and intricate wreath design, just like the one you see showcased on the packaging there. Now, each stencil in the set comes with an etched marking that indicates the layer number, making it super easy to follow along and keep your design aligned as you build it up. At the top of each stencil, you will notice a set of alignment holes. These are specifically designed to work perfectly with the Sizzix stencil and stamp tool, which is what I'll be using today to help ensure everything stays perfectly in place while we work through the layers. Another lovely feature of the stencil is that all of these stencil includes a selection of gorgeous sentiment designs. You can use these to add a message directly onto your card panel or stencil them separately and turn them into sentiment strips or tags for added dimension and versatility. While these stencils are fabulous for traditional blending, don't feel limited to just use that technique. You can also bring in your texture paste, glitter gels, or even embossing paste to really elevate your holiday cards and add some shine and sparkle to your cards. For today's project, we'll be using the Stencil and Stamp tool by Sizzix, which is incredibly helpful when working with layering stencils like the one we are using today. This tool not only keeps your card panel securely in place, but it also makes use of the alignment markings on the stencil that we looked at earlier. Those etched guidelines up with the tool's platform, making positioning really intuitive. The base of the tool includes a sticky grid sheet that helps you hold the cardstock firmly as you work on it. The grid line also serves as a helpful visual aid, making alignment of each of those stencil layers smooth and precise. Included with the tool is a stencil adapter which is designed to hold the stencil securely during blending or paste application. This adapter can be moved horizontally or vertically, allowing you to adjust the position depending on your design needs. However, for this project, I decided to align the stencil directly onto the registration holes of the stamp platform itself. Then I place a large sheet of cardstock right in the center of the tool to begin stenciling. While the base does have light adhesive to help hold your panel, I wanted to be extra sure that nothing shifted while I worked through the layers. So just to be safe, I added a bit of washi tape along the edges to keep everything perfectly steady throughout the entire process. Now that my cardstock panel is firmly secured on the base of the stamp tool, we can jump right into the stenciling process. I began by taking stencil number one from the A Wreath and Times set and aligned it using the registration holes that perfectly matched the pegs on the base of the platform. Now, this alignment features make such a big difference. It really helps to keep the stencil from shifting during the inking process and ensures that all the four layers stack up beautifully for a clean look. Now, each of those stencil includes a sentiment section built right into the design. Since I wanted to focus only on the wreath design and save the sentiments for a separate element later, I took a few extra moments to mask off the sentiment areas using a combination of post-it notes and washi tape. This way, I could ink blend freely without worrying about accidentally picking up the ink where I didn't want it to. It's a small step, but it really helps maintain a clean, polished look on your finished card. With the stencil masked and in place, I started ink blending the first layer using my blending brush and some of my favorite green toned inks. Once I was happy with the coverage, I gently peeled away the first stencil, taking care not to smudge any of that freshly inked area. Next, I grabbed stencil number two and aligned it once again using the registration holes and repeated the masking process to block the sentiment section. For this layer, I chose to work again with a darker shade of green. This gave the foliage a rich layered appearance, almost as if it was hand painted. I also kept the packaging image nearby as a helpful reference, allowing me to closely mimic the original color inspiration and placement. Once layer number two was completed, I moved on to stencil number three, which adds some of the little more detailed elements like the center of the leaves and the base layer of that large bow that sits in the center of our wreath. For the leaf centers, I used a darker shade of green to create contrast and detail. And to start building the bow, I bought in a deep, rich pink, which really stood out beautifully against that greenery and added a classic holiday pop of color. Finally, I placed stencil number 4, which is the last in the set. Now, this layer ties the whole design together by completing the bow with its top layer and adding a lovely sprinkling of berries throughout the wreath. I used a combination of cranberry and cherry red inks for the berries and added a slightly brighter pink to finish the bow. This final touch really brought everything to life and gave the wreath a festive, eye catching finish that feels perfectly suited for a holiday card. With all the stenciling done, and the result is a multi layered, vibrant, and dimensional wreath design that looks like it took hours to paint, but really came together thanks to this well defined stencil set and the ease of using that stencil platform. Once you're finished with stencil number 4, you'll really see the entire design come to life. The dimensional layers, the colors, and the fine details all come together so beautifully. At this point, you could absolutely trim down the panel to measure 4 by 5 and quarter and would easily be ready to mount on a standard A2 size card base for a clean and elegant look. But as you know, I like to take things up a notch, so I decided to add a little extra sparkle to this panel. After finishing the stenciling, I took the stencil and gave it a good wash to remove all that residual ink. I made sure it was completely dry before placing it back into the stencil platform to prep for the next step. Then I bought in one of my favorites, fairy dust sparkle paste. Using a pellet knife, I carefully spread a thin and even layer of this gorgeous paste on that open areas of the stencil. I made sure to cover all of the areas that I didn't want that stencil paste to get into. Now I have the large bows and the tiny berries scattered all around the wreath where I added this shimmer paste. I added the most beautiful subtle shimmer, perfect for holiday cards. Once I was happy with the coverage, I gently lifted the stencil straight up to avoid smudging of any of that glitter paste. Here's a tip: whenever you're working with glitter or texture paste, be sure to clean your stencil and palette knife immediately after use. Don't let the paste dry on them. It will be much harder to clean later and could damage your tools. To finish up, I set the panel aside to dry completely. While a couple of hours is usually enough, I personally like to let it dry overnight just to make sure everything is fully set and nothing transfers or smears when assembling the final card. I trimmed down the finished panel to measure 4 by 5 and quarter inches, making it slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base. This allows for a nice and clean border when mounted on the card base and helps frame the design beautifully. While the stencil set does include some lovely sentiment options, I wanted to go in a slightly different direction. I chose to gold heat emboss a delicate sentiment onto black cardstock, which reads, "To a special friend at Christmas." The sentiment is from the Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp set, which is again part of the latest release. I absolutely love the elegant font and it complements with the soft layered look of the wreath perfectly. Plus, the gold embossing ties in so well with all that sparkle on the bow and the berries, adding an extra festive touch. Once my sentiment was ready, I trimmed it into a sentiment strip and used foam tape to adhere it onto the card front for a bit of dimension. I then attached the entire panel on top of an A2 size card base, again using foam tape to give the finished piece some lift and presence. I truly love how this card came together. The layering, shimmers, and the soft color make it absolutely elegant as well as festive. And the best of all is that this design you can easily mass produce, making it perfect if you're planning to create a batch of handmade cards for the holiday season. And with everything in place, that finishes our card for today. I hope you enjoyed seeing how this beautiful layered wreath design came together using a wreath and time stencil set and few festive touches like ink blending, glitter paste, and gold heat embossing. It is such a fun and versatile design that you can easily personalize with different color palettes or sentiments and perfect for mass producing holiday cards without sacrificing the elegance and charm. Now, if you give this project a try, I'd love to see your creations. Don't forget to tag me on my Instagram. As well as, thank you so much for spending your time together. I had so much fun creating this project for you. All the supplies that I used here will be listed down in the description box below. Please know that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm really excited to share a look at some of the fabulous new products from the latest release by Stacy Park in collaboration with Sizzix. This release is packed with fun and festive items, including stamps, intricate dies, versatile nesting dies, and bold word dies. You'll also find some fantastic standalone embossing folders as well as embossing folders that come with coordinating stencils, perfect for all your Christmas and holiday themed projects. Well, in today's video, I'll give you an overview of the products included in the collection and will be showing you a few cards that I've already created using these products. I'll be sharing detailed tutorials on how I made a few of these projects in my upcoming videos later this week. Before we dive in, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Let's get started. In my set, today I have two absolutely beautiful and versatile nesting dies. We have a fabulous stamp set, which is perfect for your Christmas and holiday theme projects. Two absolutely beautiful stencils, one of which comes with a coordinating embossing folder and a wonderfully intricate background die. Now, if you visit the Sizzix website, you will find a few additional products that are part of this new release. So let's start with this gorgeous intricate background die called Wrappings in Trim Front. This set includes three separate dies that create delicate backgrounds and playful trim designs. You can even use these die cuts as stencils, which is one of my favorite ways to stretch the use of these background dies. Another great technique is to use them for adding subtle texture to your card panels by creating a faux embossed look, something I love incorporating in my projects. The main background die you see here is slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base, which means you'll get a nice border around that delicate design. Personally, I love having borders on my card front. It adds a very clean finished look and helps ground the entire design. Now, that thin strip of die that you see cuts out little leaves that you can place on the main die, or you could also use it to create borders for your card fronts. Next up, I have two stencils to share with you, and one of them comes with a coordinating embossing folder. Let us first take a look at the one that includes the embossing folder. This set is called Burst of Bright, and it features a clever design that combines deep dimensional embossing with intricate stencil details. It's perfect for adding both texture and vibrant flair to your projects. One of my favorite features of this alignment holds on top of the stencil. Now, these stencils, these are designed to work seamlessly with the Sizzix stencil and stamp tool, making it easy to line everything up perfectly. Now, in my upcoming videos, I'll walk you through exactly how to align your paper and stencil to create beautiful professional looking backgrounds along with the Sizzix stencil and stamp tool. While this set is great for holiday theme cards, I think it's really versatile and would be perfect to use year round for all kind of occasions. I absolutely love the 3D embossing folders from Sizzix. They create such a beautifully detailed impression on your cardstock panels. I like to run them through my Sizzix Big Shot die cutting machine, and the results are always crisp and full of dimension. As I've mentioned in some of my previous videos featuring Sizzix products, just take a look at those beautiful packaging. Honestly, it's so eye-catching and it could steal the show all on its own. Well, next we have the A Wreath in Time stencil set. This includes four beautifully designed stencils that come together to create a striking wreath, perfect for elevating your seasonal cards, home decor, and other holiday projects. The stencil features delicate details that allow you to build layered texture and add an elegant touch of your work, making each of these projects feel as timeless as the season itself. What I really love about each of these stencils that it includes coordinating sentiments that you can ink blend along with the wreath. Some of the sentiments include winter wishes, wishing you joy, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, and Happy Holidays. You can ink blend them with your favorite colors or even use texture paste for extra dimension, shine, and a touch of festive flair. I'm so excited to create a holiday card using this beautiful stencil, and I can't wait to share that with you. Well, in my next video, I'll walk you through some fun and creative ways to use these stencils. I've played around with some stunning colors and added a touch of sparkle to really bring the design to life. The end result is festive and elegant Christmas card that I think you're going to love. Now, let's move on to the next product. This is the Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp set. This set is full of charming Christmas elements, including ornaments in both star and circular shapes. What makes them stand out is that each ornament includes not just a simple outline but also beautifully intricate inner designs that can be layered or used on their own to create visual interest and depth in your projects. This set also comes with a coordinating die for the star shaped ornament, which makes it so easy to cut it out and use for your card fronts or even create tags. One of my favorite parts of the stamp set is the collection of sentiments here. The font choices are just gorgeous, elegant yet playful, and the messages themselves feel really thoughtful and heartfelt. They are perfect for sending warm wishes to your loved ones during the holiday season, whether you're making cards, gift tags, or handmade decorations. You can use the coordinating star die to cut out a piece of a beautifully colored cardstock, and right there you already have the base for something special. You could leave the die cut as is and turn it into a simple yet elegant holiday tag, or you could take it a step further by stamping those intricate designs from the stamp set right into the die cut shape. For an extra festive touch, try heat embossing the design using your favorite embossing powders. Traditional holiday colors like red, greens, blues work wonderfully for this, especially when paired with bold, shiny gold embossing powder. The contrast is absolutely stunning and really makes the design pop. You can also experiment with metallics, sparkly finishes, or even ombre backgrounds to give your ornament a rich and luxurious feel. Whether you're making tags, embellishments, or focal points for your cards, this die and stamp combo offers so many creative possibilities. Now let's move on to the nesting dies. I have two set of dies to share with you. The first one is called the dotted top note die. Now the set includes 8 individual dies, each featuring delicate dotted details along the edges. The dies are designed in a unique reversed label shape, which adds a fun twist to the traditional nesting die set and helps you create eye catching designs that really stand out. One of my favorite ways to use this die set is to create shaped cards. Now, whenever I feel like switching things up from a standard A2 size card, I reach out for dies like these. They are perfect for making unique card bases that immediately add interest and charm to your design. I also love using them for shaker cards. Not only do they give a beautiful shaker window, but these nesting sizes allow you to create perfectly matching borders around those windows for a polished and cohesive look. Whether you're going for an elegant, whimsical, or playful design, this die set opens up so many creative possibilities. The smallest die in the dotted top note set would be perfect for creating sentiment labels, which, in my opinion, adds such a nice finishing touch to your card fronts. It's a great alternative to simply stamping your sentiment directly onto the card base or using the usual rectangular sentiment strips. These uniquely shaped labels really help your sentiments stand out and bring out a more custom, elevated feel to your design. The second nesting die included in this new release is a stitched hexagon die set, which features 10 dies in a variety of sizes. These are fantastic for creating layered designs, shaped cards, or even fun shaker cards with bold hexagon shape. Now, I was experimenting with this set recently and I ended up creating a shaker tag. It turned out to be so cute and, well, absolutely playful. I plan to use it on a holiday gift pack this season for an extra special handmade touch. The stitched detail around the edges adds just the right amount of texture and gives the finished piece a polished and more professional look. These kinds of nesting dies are great staples to have in your collection. They are so versatile and offer endless creative possibilities, whether you're making cards, tags, or even layered embellishments. So that was a look at all the products that I have from the brand new release by Stacy Park in collaboration with Sizzix. I have to say I'm absolutely in love with this collection. Every piece is thoughtfully designed and perfect for bringing your Christmas and holiday theme projects to life. From intricate dies to beautifully detailed stencils and stamps, there's so much creative potential packed into this release. Well, now let's take a look at few of the projects that I have created using the products. First up, I have this absolutely stunning card that I made using the Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp set. For this card, I stamped each of those intricate ornament designs onto the background using clear embossing ink and then heat embossed it using gold embossing powder. The result is elegant, shimmering background which instantly gives a festive feel. For the sentiment, I stamped it using black ink and added a layer of black embossing powder on top of it for that glossy dimensional finish. To complete the card, I used the embossed resist technique, blending beautiful shades of purples and blues over the embossed ornaments. For my next card, I used the Burst of Bright stencil and embossing folder combination. I started by embossing a white cardstock panel with the embossing folder. The stencil then fits perfectly into the embossed pattern, just like a puzzle piece, which makes it so easy to align. Using some vibrant shades of orange and pink, which I must say is my absolute favorite color combination, I carefully inked up all of those raised areas of the background, adding warmth and a beautiful gradient effect. Now, for my sentiment, I chose a small, delicate phrase from the Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp set, which complemented the design perfectly without overpowering a vibrant background. As you can see here, I added the sentiment which says to a special friend, which makes this card design incredibly versatile and perfect for just about any occasion. Next, I worked with the A Wreath in Time stencil, and I have to say this card is my absolute favorite among all the projects that I created today. Using the beautiful layering stencils, I carefully recreated the stunning wreath design that is featured here on the packaging. I chose soft pinks and greens for the fresh, festive look, and to add an extra touch of magic, I applied some sparkle and shine to the bow and the berries on the wreath. I finished it off using a heat embossed sentiment from the Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp set, which really ties the whole card together with elegance and warmth. I absolutely love how this turned out. It definitely is my favorite. For card number 4, I used the wrappings and trim front background die. You can see the beautifully delicate and intricate design it cuts out. It's absolutely stunning. You might notice there's some space at the bottom of the card panel. Well, that will give you an idea of the die's size. I didn't trim the die panel at all. It's simply positioned onto one corner of a 4 by 5 and quarter inch card panel, and then, well, I added a little black strip for a striking contrast. For my sentiment, I used the stamp from the Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp set again, and to add that extra touch of sparkle and complement the intricate design, I finished the card with some delicate snowflake embellishments. The combination of texture, contrast, and shine really brings this design to life. Now, when working with such detailed dies, I like to use my Sizzix dry brush tool, which helps gently remove all of those leftover paper pieces to reveal that perfect, crisp background design. I absolutely love how this project turned out. Now, let's move on to the cards that I created using nesting dies. First up is this shaped card, a clean and simple design that's both easy to create and visually striking. To make the card base, I used one of those nesting dies to cut out a shaped card from the top folding A2 size card base. Then, using the same die, I cut out a separate panel to layer on top. One of the things that I love about this die set is the beautiful etched border it creates. It adds such a subtle yet elegant detail to this design. For this card, I used a soft pink cardstock again by Sizzix and stamped one of those snowflakes and sentiment from the Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp set and heat embossed it using gold embossing powder, which I feel adds a lovely festive shimmer and ties the whole card together beautifully. Last but certainly not the least, I have this fun shaker tag that I created using the stitched hexagon nesting dies. I absolutely love how versatile these dies are, from creating unique shaped cards to adorable shaker tags like this one. The creative possibilities are endless. For this tag, I used the nested hexagons to build the shaker frame and the inside. I stamped a delicate snowflake along with a festive sentiment. I filled the shaker with some beautiful shaker elements that add sparkle and movement. It turned out to be so festive and fun. Honestly, this tag would look just as lovely hanging on your Christmas tree as it would be tied to a holiday gift. And that wraps up a look at the new release from Stacy Park in collaboration with Sizzix, along with a few projects that I created using these stunning products. Be sure to check out the Sizzix website to explore the full collection. There's a few more products that I was not able to cover in my video. I will have links to all of those in the description box below. Every item in this release is absolutely gorgeous and perfect for all your holiday crafting, whether it be making cards, ornaments, decorations, or custom gift tags. Don't feel limited to just making a few cards. These products are designed to inspire creativity across your holiday projects. You will find direct links to all the products I shared today and a few of my Sizzix favorites listed in the description box below. Please note that all of those links will be affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm revisiting one of my all time favorite techniques. Well, it's been a long time since I last used it, so I'm really excited to share this with you. I'm creating a vibrant and colorful Christmas card featuring the embossed resist technique. We'll be doing some ink blending over these beautifully heat embossed snowflakes to create a bold and festive card front. Before we dive in, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell icon so that you never miss a new video. Let's start with the stamp set that we will be using for our project today. This is the brand new Holiday Bits and Bobs set by Stacy Park, which was just released in collaboration with Sizzix. Now, in one of my recent videos, I shared an overview of this wonderful new release. So if you haven't seen it yet, be sure to check it out for a closer look at all the fun festive products that are included in the collection. Now, this Holiday Bits and Bobs stamp features some fun ornament style of images that would be perfect for your Christmas or holiday theme cards. For today's card, I'll be stamping and heat embossing several of these images to create a beautiful snowflake inspired background. Well, it's not just these images, the sentiment on the set are absolutely stunning. What really drew me to the stamp set was the font used on the sentiment. It's such a delicate and elegant style, very much my vibe. I actually love this so much that I've already created over 10 cards using just the sentiments from this one set. So I started by placing my panel inside the Sizzix stencil and stamp tool. The grid sheet you see here on the platform has a light adhesive backing, which helps hold the paper securely in place. This feature is especially useful when you're ink blending with layering stencils. It's just the right amount of tack to keep both the panel and the stencils from shifting. Now, to begin with, I'll stamp my sentiment which says, "Believe in the magic of Christmas." Isn't that such a beautiful and thoughtful sentiment? Now, before stamping, I placed the grid transparency sheet over my panel to make sure everything was properly aligned. I stamped the sentiment on the lower right hand quadrant using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This ink gives a rich, crisp impression and is perfect when you're planning to heat emboss or add black embossing powder. Don't forget to use your anti-static powder tool every time you're heat embossing on your panels. Now, I used my black embossing powder here, but if you are stamping with your VersaFine Onyx Black ink, you could also use clear embossing powder over it, but I feel the black embossing powder gives a more crisp result. I like to use a plain printer paper for catching all of that embossing powder. I also prefer using coffee filter, but well, this time I think I just had a plain printer paper in hand, so that's the reason I'm using that. Now, once I poured the heat embossing powder, I made sure I don't have any stray embossing powder adhered anywhere to the panel other than the stamped image. I then heat embossed the sentiment, being careful to keep my heat gun moving constantly to avoid any warping of the paper. Once the sentiment was set, I returned the panel to the stamp platform and stamped all of the delicate snowflake images using clear watermark ink. This time, instead of black, I opted for a gorgeous fine gold embossing powder to bring in a warm festive shine. After applying the powder, I heat set the image again, making sure that I kept the heat gun moving so that the panel does not warp and the powder wouldn't over melt. I realized a bit too late that I hadn't hit the record button while stamping the snowflakes. You'll see me start recording again once I grabbed my heat gun. That's when I noticed my camera wasn't on, so I don't have the footage where I show how I placed all of these snowflakes onto the panel and did all the stamping and pouring of the gold embossing powder. Now, since these snowflakes cover almost the entire panel, I will make sure that the heat gun keeps moving so that the panel does not warp. Also, these images are really delicate, so overheating or the excess heat might over melt the powder. Once all the heat embossing was complete, I gave my panel a minute or so to cool down completely before moving on to the next step. Now for my absolute favorite part, which is adding ink to create that vibrant, colorful background. I place my panel onto my magnetic glass mat and using the magnets which will hold the panel in place while I ink blend. Now, while you can place your magnet in that tacky surface of your stamp tool, I prefer having the freedom to move the panel around when I'm ink blending. It just gives me more control over the color placement. Now for this project, I chose a mix of blues and purples, which is a color combination that I absolutely adore. This blend of cool tones gives the card such a magical feel. The beauty of this embossed resist technique is that the heat embossed image will resist all that ink. So don't worry, you won't lose any of that gorgeous gold shine on your snowflakes. In simple terms, embossed resist involves heat embossing a design that repels ink, whether you're ink blending or watercoloring. The embossed areas stay clean and crisp, standing out beautifully against that colored background. Now, for ink blending here, I didn't follow any strict plan when applying my blues and purples. I just let the colors flow and had fun with it. And honestly, I'm in love with how this turned out. I would definitely give it a try in more color combinations and maybe a little more festive colors with some beautiful shades of reds or maybe even greens. Let me know in the comments down below what are your favorite holiday color combinations or color choices that you prefer to use when you're creating holiday cards. For the area around the sentiment, I used the leftover ink on my blending brush to lightly add a bit of color. I didn't want to leave that area stark white, but I also kept it soft to let that sentiment remain the focal point. Once the ink blending was complete, I took my microfiber cloth and gently buffed away any of that excess ink sitting on top of the embossed images. This step helps lift any residual ink that may have settled on the embossing uh, image, and the results are absolutely stunning. The gold embossing truly pops against that rich blend of purples and blues, creating a striking and elegant finish. I added some foam tape to the back of the panel to give it a bit of a dimension and adhered it to a top folding A2 size white card base. Now I forgot to mention earlier, but I had trimmed this panel down to 4 by 5 and quarter inches before starting ink blending. Now I love the look of that clean white border around the card front. It really helps frame the design. And of course, what's a festive card without a little sparkle? To finish off this card, I added a few gold sequences at the center of each of those snowflakes. The gold sequins perfectly complement the gold embossing and, well, tying everything together beautifully. I absolutely love how this card turned out. Well, I truly enjoyed putting this card together, and I hope you loved watching the process just as much as I did creating this project for you guys. The embossed resist technique continues to be one of my absolute favorites, and it's such a simple yet impactful way to create beautiful backgrounds with so much more visual interest. From such delicate gold heat embossed snowflakes to those rich blend of blues and purples and the bold sentiment that anchors the whole thing together, every element came together to create this beautiful and elegant festive Christmas card. And of course, those little gold sequences that added a perfect touch of shine and sparkle to finish off this card. Now, if you've never tried embossed resist before, I highly recommend giving it a go. Whether you're using ink blending, watercolors, or even ink sprays, it always results in something unique and eye catching. And the best part, you can easily customize it with your favorite colors, or, well, it works absolutely wonderfully with anything. Now, all the supplies that I used to create this card will be found linked in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Also, don't forget to check out the new Stacy Park collection by Sizzix. It's absolutely stunning for all your fun Christmas and holiday themed project. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Well, if you love coffee and card making, you're in for a treat today. I'm sharing a card design that speaks right to the heart of every coffee lover, featuring a fun and detailed background stencil that's perfect for all you caffeine enthusiasts and crafters alike. We'll be adding a bold focal point, softening things up with a sheet of vellum over that busy background, and some other fun elements from the brand new Magical Brew release by Cat Scrappiness. Well, before we jump in and create something special, I would really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I post a new video. Let us take a closer look at this brand new stencil. It's called Beautiful Beans Stencil and it measures 6 by 6 inches. Now, it is the perfect mix of function and fun for all you coffee lovers and crafty creators out there. The design features a playful scatter of coffee beans in different sizes that are randomly arranged to give a very natural and organic feel. Today I'll be using a rich coffee brown ink to ink blend all over my panel, but honestly this stencil is super versatile, great not just for creating cards but also journals, mixed media projects and lots more. You can easily use it with your inks but also with paints, sprays, gels, embossing pastes. The options are endless. Be sure to check out the Cat Scrappiness website for more amazing goodies from this new Magical Brew release. I'll be doing some ink blending on an A2 size white cardstock panel. Well, if you're going for a more vintage vibe, feel free to swap it out with a craft cardstock. That'll look amazing too. Now for my setup, I like to place both my panel and stencil on my Glassboard Studio glass mat. You might have also noticed me using my ultra sticky mat, but since this project only involves a single layer of ink blending, the grass surface works perfectly. Now, one of my favorite things about this Glassboard Studio mats is that they are magnetic, which means I can use small magnets to keep both the stencil and cardstock securely in place while I ink blend. Plus, they're heat resistant and super easy to clean, especially when the ink goes over the edges, which, let's be honest, happens all the time. For the background, I chose to use two different shades of brown inks. As you'll notice during the ink blending process, I wasn't too concerned with achieving a perfectly smooth or even blend. And that's completely intentional. I applied the inks in somewhat patchy and uneven manner, blending the two shades in a loose organic pattern. This approach adds so much more visual interest to the background. The variation in the ink intensity creates a beautiful sense of depth with areas that appear lighter and others that feel shadowed, giving an illusion of dimension to what is essentially a single layer stencil image. So, if you're worried about achieving a perfectly smooth blend, don't be. Sometimes a little imperfection can actually bring more character and life to your project. Here's a look at our finished panel. How gorgeous is that? Well, I decided to keep the look clean and simple, so I skipped any paint or ink splatter or any shimmer. But if you're looking to add a bit of shine to your stencil background, one tip is to leave the stencil in place and lightly mist it with a shimmer spray. It instantly adds a beautiful, subtle sparkle without overpowering the design. Now, before moving on to the next step, I always make it a point to clean my stencil, especially when I just have one stencil to clean. I simply place it on a microfiber cloth, spray it with water, and using another microfiber cloth, gently wipe away the ink. It's quick, easy, and keeps your stencil ready for your next project. Now that our background is complete, it's time to move on to the focal point of the card. I wanted something bold that would really draw the eye to the center of the card front, so I chose a large layered coffee cup die by Cat Scrappiness. This die includes everything you need to create a realistic looking takeout coffee cup, from the cup itself to the lid and even a little sleeve. It's a fantastic piece that can be paired with so many coffee themed sentiments and other coordinating products. And yes, we'll be using that sleeve to stamp our sentiment right on it, giving it a fun coffee theme feel. For the coffee cup components, I am going with a charming polka dot pattern paper from the Per Cup paper pad. This collection is full of coffee inspired designs in warm browns and earthy greens, perfect for bringing those cozy coffee vibes to life. The Per Cup paper pad includes such a lovely variety of coffee themed designs. There's truly something for every style. You'll find pattern papers featuring stacked coffee cups topped with whipped cream, playful polka dots in both large and small sizes, and even a deep, rich brown sheet with scattered coffee beans that remind me of the stenciled background. There are also a couple of striped designs that incorporate the warm browns and the soft greens, tying the entire collection together beautifully. Now, for the main body of my coffee cup, I chose the pattern paper with a soft green background with the creamy polka dots. It has just the right balance of whimsy and subtlety, making it perfect for the focal point image. To add contrast, I used a plain white cardstock for the lid of the cup. It gives a crisp and clean finish. And for the sleeve, I went with a craft cardstock, which complements the overall earthy, coffee inspired color scheme really well. I die cut all these individual components using my Spellbinder's Platinum 6 die cutting machine and then assembled the cup by layering the pieces with my Barely Art glue. This glue is absolutely fantastic for detailed work and gives me just enough wiggle room to line everything together perfectly. You'll see in the video that I'm using my reverse tweezers by Cat Scrappiness. This is such a game changer when it comes to handling small and delicate pieces. They make the layering process so much more easier and precise. I'm holding off on attaching the coffee sleeve for now because I'll be stamping a sentiment onto it before adhering it to the cup. This way, everything stays clean and crisp. For the sentiment, I wanted something witty and fun to match with the playful coffee theme of the card and my mood. So I reached for the Perk Up stamp set by Cat Scrappiness. This set features adorable coffee themed images like a coffee pot, a cute cup, and a great selection of humorous and relatable sentiments that are perfect for coffee lovers. Now, what I really love about the stamp set is that it comes with coordinating dies, not only for the images but also the sentiment. This makes it super easy to cut everything out cleanly and add a layered and detailed touches to your card fronts without fussing or fuzzy cutting. For today's card, I went for the sentiment that reads coffee because adulting is hard. It's one of my favorites. Not only is it very clever and funny, but let's be honest, it's totally relatable. I stamped the sentiment using the same brown ink that I ink blended for my background, keeping the colors cohesive and warm. Once the sentiment was stamped, I went ahead and attached the coffee sleeve onto the cup. I glued it down directly using liquid glue, but if you want to add some extra dimension, you could definitely use foam tape to pop it up instead. Now, I was absolutely happy with how this focal point came together. It's always more fun when the sentiment is integrated right into the main image rather than having a separate sentiment strip. It creates a nice unified look that really draws your attention. Now, with both the background panel and the focal point ready, I was all set to assemble the coffee cup onto the panel until I noticed that the white areas of the background were a bit too bright for my taste. So, to soften it down, I took the leftover ink on the brown ink blending brush and lightly blended over the entire panel with a subtle layer of ink. This toned down everything perfectly without overpowering the design. As I mentioned earlier, if you prefer, you could also start with your craft or light brown cardstock for the panel instead of using white, which would give you a more softer vintage feel from the very beginning. Now, the next step is totally optional, but I like to add a piece of vellum over my busy background to help ground the focal point image. Now, I cut the vellum just large enough to cover the focal point, which allows it to stand out without completely hiding that beautifully ink blended background behind it. To add dimension, I used foam tape to mount the focal point onto the vellum. Then I adhered the whole assembly onto our ink blended panel with liquid glue. For a nice finishing touch, I framed the vellum piece using stitched wacky frame dye, which adds a subtle stitch detail around the edges. And just like that, our card is complete. You could certainly add some extra touches like coffee bean embellishments or a sprinkle of brown or champagne colored sequences for a little sparkle, but I chose to keep this panel clean and simple, mounting it directly onto an A2 size top folding card base. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled on how this project turned out. It's cozy, fun, and perfect for any coffee lover. Thank you so much for joining me today to create this cozy coffee themed card. I hope you enjoyed seeing how few of these simple techniques like ink blending, layering die cuts, and using vellum came together to make this beautiful and unique card project. Well, all the supplies that I used to create this card will be listed down in the description box below, along with the other products from the new Magical Brew release by Cat Scrappiness. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello crafty friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we are creating a quick and easy card using a stunning 3D embossing folder that comes with a coordinating stencil. The star of this project is that beautifully embossed background which takes the center stage. I kept the design very simple by adding just a small little sentiment strip right in the center, letting it act both as my focal point as well as the sentiment for the card. With just a touch of a sequin mix for some added sparkle, this design is perfect for mass producing in a variety of different colors and some fun sentiments. Well, before we get started, I would really appreciate if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you never miss any video. Take a look at this gorgeous embossing folder and stencil combo. It's called Burst of Bright and it is part of the new Stacy Park release in collaboration with Sizzix. Now, actually, I have a video where I shared some fun products from this release along with a few project ideas that I created using them. You'll find the link to all those videos down in the description box below. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Sizzix three-dimensional embossing folders, and this Burst of Bright set is no exception. It features an intricate dimensional design that adds both texture and vibrance, perfect for elevating any project. Whenever I'm working with an embossing folder and a stencil combo, I always like to start by embossing my cardstock to create that beautifully etched and dimensional design. Once the embossing is done, I follow it up with ink blending using the coordinating stencil to bring the details to life with color and depth. Now, whenever I'm using 3D embossing folders for best results, I prefer to use 80-pound cardstock instead of 110 or 120-pound cardstock. Now, this is sturdy enough to hold the dimension, but also slightly flexible. Now, before placing the paper into the embossing folder, I lightly mist it with water using my spray bottle. This small step helps to soften the fibers of the paper, preventing any cracking or tearing as it goes through the pressure of the machine. It's especially helpful when you're working with deeper 3D designs. Also, since we have a lighter weight cardstock, the chances of cracking are a lot lesser as compared to a heavyweight cardstock, but we will still spray this panel with water. Now I'm using my Sizzix Big Shot die cutting machine to 3D emboss on this panel. Now, if you're new to this machine, there are instructions on this on how to place each of your either 3D embossing folders or standard 2D embossing folders or even basic die cutting machines printed on this panel. Now for the 3D embossing, I begin with this thick base plate as my bottom layer. Next, I will place the embossing folder with the lightly misted paper inside it, creating a neat sandwich. I then place one standard cutting plate on top, just one, not two, as the 3D embossing folder requires a different sandwich than your regular die cuts. I ran the entire stack through the Big Shot machine, and when it comes out, we have this absolutely stunning, deeply embossed panel with all those intricate details beautifully pressed into the cardstock. It is such a satisfying result and really gives your project that extra wow factor from the very beginning. Now that we have the embossed panel, it's time to add some beautiful ink blending to this panel. To begin, I'll align the stencil over the embossed panel, making sure that the design lines up perfectly with the raised areas. I like to focus on lining up the negative spaces in the stencil with the detailed embossing underneath. Once everything is in place, I secure the stencil and the panel together using some temporary adhesive. A low tack tape or washi tape works perfectly for this. This step ensures nothing shifts while we are ink blending. Now, one of my favorite features of these Sizzix stencils is their built-in alignment system. Each stencil comes with two holes at the top designed to fit into the pegs of the Sizzix stencil and stamp tool. This makes positioning incredibly easy and ensures perfect placement every time, especially when you're layering stencils or creating multiples of the same design. Next, I'll place both the embossed panel and the stencil onto the platform. You actually don't need to lock them into the pegs unless you want to, because the platform itself comes with a sticky grid sheet that has a very light, tacky surface. It gently holds both your stencil and cardstock in place, preventing any slipping as you work. It's such a helpful feature, especially when you're ink blending detail areas or working with multiple layers. Once I have everything perfectly aligned, the stencil sitting flush over the embossed panel, I like to take an extra moment to gently press down the surface. This just helps ensure that the stencil and the panel are firmly in place and won't shift while ink blending. Now, it's a very small but important step, especially if you're working with multiple stencil layers or planning to recreate this design several times for batch card making. A little prep here sometimes really saves time and frustration later, helping you get crisp results each and every time. Now comes my favorite part of this whole entire project, which is ink blending. This is where all of that beautiful dimension really begins to pop. For today's panel, I'll be using one of my absolute go to color combinations, which is a deep, warm orange paired with a vibrant, rich pink. These two colors blend so beautifully together, creating a very high energy sunset like feel that really brings the design to life. What I love about this particular embossing folder and stencil combo is that how precisely everything lines up. The negative spaces in the stencil fit perfectly over the raised areas of the embossed design. That alignment makes it incredibly easy to apply color exactly where you want it, and it means you don't have to worry about the ink straying into the wrong areas or areas where you don't want the ink to go. Because of that, the ink blending process is not only smooth but also surprisingly quick. I started by applying the deep orange ink right in the center of the panel, focusing most of the intensity there. Then, using a separate blending brush, I brought in that vibrant pink from the outer edges, softly blending it into the orange to create a smooth transition. The combination of the embossed texture and that rich gradient of color adds so much depth and interest, making it look like you've spent way more time than you actually have. This technique is such a great way to create high impact cards that are still very easy to replicate. You could create these in a bunch of different colors. I think I would even try having some fun teals and purples and also rainbow color, maybe. I always make it a point to clean my stencil right after ink blending, especially when I'm working with multiple colors or switching between different ink colors. To do this, I simply lay the stencil flat on a microfiber cloth and give it a quick mist with water. Then, using another clean microfiber cloth, I gently wipe away the ink or any excess moisture. This method is super quick and effective. It only takes about 30 seconds, and your stencil is clean and ready to go for the next round of ink blending. Keeping your tools clean as you go is especially helpful when you're mass producing cards in different color palettes. It helps avoid color contamination and keeps your results looking crisp and professional. Now it's time to work on the sentiment for our card. For this, I'll be using this beautiful stamp set which is called Holiday Bits and Bobs, which is also part of the new release by Sizzix. Now, I've been absolutely loving this set. It's filled with charming winter themed elements, including those delicate snowflake patterns and a variety of sentiments that are perfect for holiday and seasonal card making. Now, what really drew me to this set is actually the font on those sentiments. It's elegant, unique, and works beautifully with both clean and layered card designs. I've already used several of these sentiments across different projects, and every time I find myself falling more in love with the style and versatility of that beautiful font. For today's card, I have chosen a sentiment that says to a special friend at Christmas. But since we are not actually making a Christmas card, I'll be doing a little creative masking here. I'll cover the words at Christmas and I will be stamping only the part that says to a special friend. This simple trick of masking allows me to stretch the use of my holiday themed stamps throughout the year. By modifying the sentiment, I can easily turn this either into a birthday card, a thank you note, or even just a sweet thinking of you card. It's a great reminder that a little masking our seasonal supplies can work year round. For the sentiment, I decided to go with a classic and bold look by stamping it onto a piece of black cardstock and heat embossing it using white embossing powder. This combination always makes the sentiment stand out beautifully, especially against a colorful or textured background. To begin, I placed my black cardstock panel onto my stamp platform and positioned the sentiment strip near the bottom edge of the panel. Aligning it close to the bottom allows me to easily trim it down using a paper trimmer. No need for a sentiment label die in this case. Now, before doing any stamping, don't forget to prep your cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. This step is essential when heat embossing as it helps prevent stray powder from clinging to unwanted areas and gives you a much cleaner and finished look. Since I only wanted to use part of the sentiment, I masked off the words I didn't need using a post-it note. You could again use a masking tape or a washi tape. I then inked up the visible portion of the stamp with clear embossing ink. Now, before closing the lid of the stamping tool, it's really important to remove the masking tape. Otherwise, you'll end up stamping it onto the post-it and then onto your cardstock, which will get super messy. Now, because the sentiment features a very fine and delicate font, I made sure to apply gentle, even pressure when closing the stamping platform. Now, pressing too hard could cause the design to blur or smudge, especially with that detailed font. Now, once stamped, I sprinkled on some white embossing powder, tapped off the excess, and heat set it with my heat gun. The result is a beautiful, crisp, bright sentiment that contrasts beautifully against that black background. This is a very clean, elegant, and perfect for our card design that we created today. Using my paper trimmer, I carefully cut down the sentiment into a clean strip. I wanted it to really stand out against that colorful background, so I decided to pop it up right in the center of that embossed panel using a bit of foam tape for added dimension. Now, since this embossed pattern has a beautiful radiating design that flows outward from the center, another fun option would be to use a circular sentiment or a sentiment die cut. It would echo the movement of that background absolutely beautifully. Now, for this card, I decided to keep it simple since I wanted more of that focus to go on my background rather than my sentiment. That's the reason I decided to keep it simple and modern with that horizontal, tiny little sentiment strip. Before attaching the sentiment, I trimmed the panel to 4 by 5 1 quarter. This is slightly smaller than your standard A2 size card base, which measures 4 1 quarter by 5.5 inches. I prefer a trimmed down panel because it leaves a clean, even border around the edges when you mount it on a card base, giving the entire design a more finished and framed look. To make sure that my sentiment was perfectly centered, I used a T-square ruler for alignment. This tool really helps ensure straight placement, especially useful when working with clean graphic card designs like this one here. Now you'll also see me adding a bit of liquid glue on top of that foam tape before placing the sentiment strip down. This is a little trick I often use. It gives just enough wiggle room to adjust and reposition the strip if needed before the adhesive fully sets in. It really helps with precise placements too. You could do it with either sentiment strips or even die cut pieces. And just look at how everything's coming together. That vibrant orange and pink blend in the background adds so much warmth and energy, while that bold white sentiment on black cardstock creates a superb, striking contrast. The combination really makes the sentiment pop and pulls the entire design together absolutely beautifully. Now that the front panel is complete, it's time to assemble the card onto a standard A2 size card base. While I usually gravitate towards the classic white card base, today I wanted to have a little more fun with colors. So I reached out for the lightest shade of pink cardstock that I had in my stash, and it perfectly complements with the tone of that ink blended background. I trimmed and scored the pink cardstock to create a side folding A2 size card base, then mounted the finished panel onto it using some foam tape for added dimension and a bit of a lift. Before calling this card done, I wanted to add just the right amount of sparkle to finish things off. So I reached for this beautiful sequin mix by This Calls for Confetti and scattered a few sequins on either side of that sentiment strip. These little accents help balance the design and bring in a bit of shimmer and shine, giving the card a very polished and festive final look. With the sequence added, our card is now complete and ready to share. Unlike many of the traditional designs where I have a background, a focal point, and a sentiment that are distinct and separate elements, this card brings everything together in a more unified way. The true star here is that beautifully ink blended textured background, which serves as a main focal point of our card. Paired with that small, delicate sentiment strip, the design feels absolutely balanced and elegant, proving that sometimes less is more and that a subtle sentiment can still take center stage. Here's a look at the finished card. I hope you enjoyed seeing how simple yet striking this card came together using embossing, stenciling, and heat embossing techniques. Sometimes the most beautiful designs come from letting the background shine and keeping the sentiment sweet and subtle with no added extra focal point images. Now, all the supplies that I used to create this card will be linked down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. If you give this project a try, I'd love to see your creations. Please tag me on my Instagram at rp underscore shutterbug, sharing your creativity. Well, thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe. Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm sharing a fun and vibrant card project featuring the gorgeous sentiment stamp from the new Happy Camper release by Simon Stamp. I used it to build this bright and colorful background filled with playful hues, meaningful sentiments, and lovely florals. Before we dive in, I would really appreciate if you could take a minute to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I post a new video. For today's card, I'll be featuring the absolutely stunning CZ Designs U2 stamp set, which is part of the latest Happy Camper release by Simon Stamp. This release is packed with so much fun and creative goodies. I'll leave a link to the full product lineup and the new release in the description box below. Be sure to check it out. This U2 stamp set is a small, compact 3 by 4 inch set, but it is packed with versatile and heartfelt sentiments, all centered around the powerful word you. The word you appears in a variety of beautiful styles and scripty fonts designed to pair perfectly with the coordinating sub-sentiments that is included in the set. This set is ideal for creating customized messages, whether you're sending love, gratitude, encouragement, or congratulations. For today's card, I'll be mixing and matching several of these sentiments to build a beautiful, vibrant, and uplifting background, along with some fun, colorful florals that I created using die cuts from products from the previous release, again by Simon Stamp. This stamp set does come with coordinating dies that cut out all of those U sentiments. However, for today's card, I'll be stamping them directly onto a white cardstock panel, which is trimmed to 4 by 5 and quarter inches, that is slightly smaller than a standard A2 size card base. To begin, I placed my panel onto my stamping platform. Here I'm using the Ultranew stamp wheel, which features an ultra sticky mat to keep everything securely in place, especially helpful since I'll be doing quite a bit of repeat stamping. Just to be extra cautious, I also added a bit of washi tape around the edges, which you will see later in the video. Well, it's not absolutely necessary, but I'd rather be safe than risk having to start all over again. Next, I laid the transparency sheet over my panel, which will help me align all of the sentiments precisely. For the color palette, I wanted to keep things bright and vibrant, so I chose one ink from almost all of the color families, creating a soft rainbow effect. All of these inks are from the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated Ink Collection, with the exception of red shade, for which I'm using my Lumberjack Plaid Distress Mini Ink Cube. This set includes four unique styles of word U, and well, I decided to use all four on my card. I arranged them thoughtfully across the card front, allowing space to pair each one with a coordinating sub sentiment. This mix and match approach really adds interest and personalization to your design. The grid transparency sheet is incredibly helpful, not only for aligning the sentiments in straight lines, but also for visually balancing each section of that card. It made it so easy to divide the panel into quadrants and ensure everything felt cohesive and well placed. For each of the U sentiments, I chose different colors of ink. I started with Lumberjack Plaid, which is a rich red for my first U, followed by Sherbet, which was a lovely orange. Then we have Cadet, a bold blue, and Orchid, which is that vibrant purple you see in the end. I stamped each of these words twice to achieve a clean, crisp impression. Next, I moved on to the sub-sentiments. For that, I brought back my grid transparency sheet to help with the precise placement and positioned each sub-sentiment so that it slightly overlapped with the larger colorful U beneath it. Now, this is where you see I have my washi tape. That is because at some point I felt that my paper was moving and I didn't want to mess it up. Now, originally, I planned on stamping all of these sub sentiments using charcoal positively saturated inks, but later I switched to VersaFine Onyx Black ink for a deeper, crisper result. The bold black ink created a perfect contrast against that bright background and helped the sentiments really pop. I'm already in love with how this card is turning out. The vibrant colors paired with those gorgeous sentiments make it such a meaningful and thoughtful piece of art for the recipient. Now, sentiment stamps like these are perfect for creating personalized cards, and they work especially well when building an entire background using just words. I've actually created a similar design before where I used only sentiments to build the background for a teacher themed card. If you're interested in seeing that project, I have linked the video down in the description box below. Be sure to check it out. To fill in the empty spaces between the sentiments, I decided to add some beautiful floral elements. You can use any floral dies that you already have in your stash. For this card, I chose the lovely Buttercup die set. It includes two different bloom sizes, each with two layering pieces for added dimension. It also comes with two stem designs, but for today's card project, I will not be using the stems. I will just be using the flowers. And well, I cut out a bunch of these flowers using plain white cardstock. To color them, I placed my die cut pieces onto my Simon's Stamp Ultra Sticky Mat, which is a great tool for keeping tiny bits in place while ink blending on them. I used the remaining colors from our earlier rainbow palette. For a few set of flowers, I used this gorgeous yellow citrine and pink sweets, which is I absolutely love this color combination of pink and yellow. It gives a beautiful transition. For few of those flowers, I paired the citrine with twilight, which is an absolutely beautiful blue. So up till now, Other than the green shade from the rainbow, we have used almost all of the colors. We have oranges, yellows, pinks, blues, and purples. Now, let me know in the comments below, do you prefer die cutting with colored cardstock, or do you like to start with white and then add your own color? Personally, I love die cutting from white cardstock and customizing the colors myself. It gives me much more flexibility and control, letting me tailor the color palette perfectly to match the rest of my card design. For all of the ink blending on these florals, I'm using my mini ink blending brushes from Cat Scrappiness. There are two types of brushes by Cat Scrappiness, one with soft bristles and the other which has a little firmer bristle. Personally, I prefer the firm bristles as they give me better control and precision during all of this beautiful ink blending process. To add some greenery to the cut front, I die cut a few leaves using the Leafy Sprigs die from Simon Says. An older release, but still one of my absolute favorites. I find myself reaching for this particular leaf shape die often whenever I'm working with anything floral. For ink blending, I used three shades of greens. We have pine, perfection, and limelacious, which together create a lovely gradient and bring the foliage to life. After finishing the ink blending, I assembled all the florals, adding foam tape between the layers to give them some dimension and depth. Now it's time to bring these vibrant floral pieces into our colorful, sentiment filled background. There's really no right or wrong way of doing it. I simply started filling the open areas between the sentiments with the flowers. Now I focused on placing the yellow and pink flowers towards the top of the card while the blue and yellow ones were arranged near the bottom. To introduce a bit of contrast and visual balance, I added smaller blooms to the sides, slightly overlapping the different colors. For adhering everything together, I used the new Positively Perfect Craft Glue by Simon Says. Well, not all of the flowers are glued flat to the card, but the smaller blooms were propped up using foam tape for added dimension and texture. Once the flowers were arranged, I tucked in the leafy sprigs around them to give the design a more finished and polished look. Well, if you're familiar with my card making style, you will know that I usually gravitate towards simple and clean and simple designs, often just using a focal point image paired with a sentiment, maybe even a background. But in this case, I definitely stepped outside my comfort zone. But I have to say, I'm really loving the result. The bright colors, the layers, and how a simple sentiment stamp with just a bunch of mix and match sentiments inspired me to push my boundaries out of my usual style. It all came together so beautifully. This part of the video is sped up quite a bit, but in reality, I spent a good amount of time carefully arranging each element. Even though, as I mentioned earlier, there's no right or wrong way of doing this, but I really wanted to make sure I was happy with the overall composition before adhering everything down. I paid special attention to ensure that none of that sentiments were hidden beneath the floral arrangement. In some areas, particularly around the edges of the cardstock, there weren't any large flowers, so I filled those gaps with a few leftover leaf pieces. This helped the overall design feel more complete and balanced. Once I was done adhering all of the florals, I just turned my panel and cut off any of those excess uh, leaves or florals or any adhered pieces using a pair of scissors. I absolutely love how this card front turned out. I'll definitely be revisiting this style, bringing together lots of elements, layers, and textures to create something vibrant and full of interest. To complete the card, I mounted the finished panel onto a craft cardstock base. I love how that soft brown tone complements the bright, colorful card front and really ties the whole design together. For finishing touches, I added some shine and sparkle to the florals and the leaves using my Spectrum Noir glitter brush pen. Then I added a few white highlights with my white gel pen to bring out that extra detail. Just a quick tip, always apply your glitter first before adding your gel pen highlights to avoid smudging. Well, with that, we have this beautiful card ready. I absolutely love how this card turned out. I hope you enjoyed seeing this colorful and sentiment focused card come together. It was so much fun stepping outside my usual clean and simple style to create something bold, bright, and full of layered elements. This project really shows how a great sentiment stamp can be the star of your design and how easily you can build around it with just a few thoughtful touches and supplies that you already have in your stash. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and don't forget to check out the full Happy Camper release by Simon System. I will have links to all of the products and the products that I used to create this card down in the description box below. Please note that all of those links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.